Alright, welcome to channel. Today we're going to be talking about Oraxia, the new spider frame added to Warframe this past update, the Isle Weaver update. We have quite a bit to go over, so sit back, chillax, and we shall go over each of it bit by bit. So, first things first, let's go ahead and take a look at her abilities. Her first one is her passive. Wall Latch grants Predator Lurk, rendering Oraxia invisible for a second. So what that means is anytime you go over here and watch to a wall, you're going to become invisible for 8 seconds. Now you can change this if you just sit here and constant wall latch. Now, she does make this a little bit easier with her fourth ability. Now, if you do go into her fourth ability, your dodge now becomes a little, kind of like Spider-Man. The easiest way to think about it is Spider-Man. Once you web and pull yourself to whatever surface you were looking at. So if you just sit here and constantly latch to walls and ceilings, you will continuously extend that second up, constantly refreshing it, being invisible for 90% of the mission. Now, with that pretty much covers her passive. Now when it comes to the rest of her abilities, we have her first ability. Leap onto an enemy, pierce them with Oraxia's fire legs, dealing toxic damage. Enemies defeated by this attack have a chance to drop health or energy orbs. This one is called Mercy's Kiss. So with this ability, if you have enemies, go ahead and spawn just some normal corrupted crewmen, 210s. So with this one, go and before we showcase, let's go and take a look at it real quick. So you have an instant kill threshold of 50%. So in other words, if their HP is below 50%, then you can insta kill that enemy. A little marker will pop above their head, and you just activate the ability on that enemy, and you will get the instant kill. And at the same time, you can drop health orbs and energy orbs, which is also scalable by strength. So the more strength you have, the more health orbs you drop, the more energy orbs you drop as well. So, the way this looks, normally on an enemy that is not affected by that threshold, right there, and it does deal toxin damage as well. Now, if we get the enemy below 50% of their HP, they get a little marker above their head. That's telling you, hey, this enemy is below that threshold, and you can insta-kill them. Now, with that, you can insta-kill Xmas units and certain bosses, like the Rogue Necromechs, Instinctum, and Tonica, as well as those giant tech rots that you see running around in 1999 sometimes. If they get that symbol above their head, you can utilize this mechanic on them as well. So, once they get this symbol above their head, like I said, letting you know, like, hey, I'm ready for instant kill. You just activate your ability, and you will spawn health orbs and energy orbs. Now, you didn't see any pop up because I currently have the equipment on my build, so let's go ahead and fix that. And we'll just knock this guy down a couple of pegs. Alright, now he's got that above his head. Go ahead and make sure we're max so that way you can see everything that comes out of it. And they just rain down with health orbs and energy orbs. Now, in her fourth ability, you do get a little bit more toxin damage on that gets applied, but we'll go over that here in a second. So her next ability is her second ability. So with her second ability, Web's Embrace. Oraxia throws a creeping web to ensnare her prey. Enemies caught within the widening radius are trapped inside cocoon that increase their damage vulnerability. So while they are ensnared, you do cause more damage to the enemy. Now with that, if the enemy has overguard, like Xmas units, you do have to strip the overguard first in order for them to get ensnared. But I have ensnared Xmas unit, plenty of Xmas units, as well as I've even ensnared the Rogue Necromechs and Sanctum and Tonica as well. So there are a lot of enemies that are capable of being ensnared. You just have to strip their defenses first, and then they will get affected by the ensnare. Now with this as well, I have noticed a little bit of a bug that goes on with it in terms of with her first ability, Mercy's Kiss. If you have the ensnare down, and an enemy gets ragdolled, and then they get caught by the snare when they're like halfway through the ground, you may not be able to mercy kiss them. Alternately, if you're going up against the murmur and you have web's embrace down and they start spawning out of the ground, it'll ensnare them when they're halfway through the ground, and you won't be able to activate mercy's kiss on their enemy, on that enemy. Is it game breaking? No. Is it kind of annoying? Yeah, but then you just shoot them and get it over with, and then just go use your mercy's kiss on a different enemy. But so without further ado, so the way this ability works is you throw out a little ball, and it extends out. Any enemy that does not have overguard gets ensnared. They do get a little bit of toxin applied to them when they first get ensnared, but it will wear off. But otherwise, they will sit here so long as the duration lasts on the ensnare. They will sit there and be stuck, and they get damage vulnerability, so you will be doing more damage to these enemies as well. Now, with their third ability, the fun ability. So with this one, the maximum amount of scuttlers you can spawn is 10. Let's go ahead and read it first. So, Widow's Brood. Oraxia launches a barrage of stinging darts in front of her that apply toxin. Status effect. Poisoned enemies spawn scuttlers when killed. So the range on this is 36 meters. You do think that does cause toxic damage. It does have a duration, affected by duration mods. Angle is not affected by range mods. Keep that in mind. Scuttler duration is 57 seconds, affected by duration mods. Max scuttlers is 10. So, but you're probably sitting there thinking like, hey, Josh, I've had more than 10 scuttlers, even though the ability says 10. And what I have to say to that is, I know. And I know exactly what causes that. So, what happens when you activate your darts? Obviously, it poisons the enemies, right? You get a little bit of toxin. Any enemies that die while they're affected by the darts have a chance of spawning scuttlers, up to a maximum of 10. Now, what the game does is if you have 5 scuttlers, and you throw out a bunch of darts and you kill like 5 more enemies, one by one, and each time you kill an enemy that's been affected by, or third, by the darts, it'll run a check. Okay, how many scuttlers do they have? Do they have 5? Okay, they just killed an enemy, spawn a 6th one. Oh, they have 9? Okay, killed. They just killed another enemy affected by a dart, spawn a 10th one. Oh, they have, but if you have 10, and you kill an enemy affected by the dart, it runs the check, but it won't spawn anymore because you already have 10. Now, where the bug comes into play is there isn't a maximum number of enemies that her 3 can target. So, theoretically speaking, you could have 50 enemies within that 36 meter range and within an angle of 35 degrees. So if you're staring at 50 enemies, all of them are within an angle of 35 degrees and all of them are within 36 meters, you will hit every single one of those enemies with a dart. And if you start at 0 scuttlers and you instant kill or kill every single one of those enemies simultaneously, you'll overspawn the scuttlers. Now, if you already have a couple of scuttlers, you can still overspawn the scuttlers, but it's less accurate in terms of spawning more. Sometimes it'll cap it at 10, sometimes it won't, so it's more consistent if you start off with 0 scuttlers. But if you kill, like I said, if you kill every single one of those enemies all at the exact same time, it bypasses the check that the game does to see how many scuttlers you have, and it'll overspawn the scuttlers. Case in point, we'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. We'll just kind of come up here, and then... So as you see right there, we now have 18 scuttlers. So we did in fact overspawn the scuttlers, because like I said, so long as the enemies are within that angle of 35 degrees and within your range, for me is 39 meters. It'll throw a dart and hit every single one of those enemies. If you kill every single one of them at the exact same time, it'll overspawn the Scutters. Now the maximum I have had is 19 here in the simulacrum, but theoretically you could have even more than 19. Each of them will have the normal duration that is affected by duration mods as well, so whatever your duration on the Scutters is, it doesn't increase the duration on them, it only increases the number. So that is currently a bug in the game, which should be fixed here probably pretty soon. But that is why if you have been playing here, you go around and you see like, hey, I have more than 10, the ability says only 10. That is currently why. So yes, it is a bug, and until they patch it, feel free to go and have fun with it. It's not really game breaking all too much. But it does add a little bit of fun. It's kind of funny when it happens during missions. You're saying, hey, I have more Scutters than I should. But anyway, moving on. So we'll go on to her fourth ability, which is the fun one in my opinion. Silken Stride. Unfurl Oraxia's spider legs and go on the prowl. Oraxia is immune to status effects and has increased maximum health. Ranged weapons are with toxin damage. Killing enemies causes them to burst with toxin. Silken Thread, tap dodge to leap to the target's surface. And then you have your Drain. Drain a second, because it is a active ability. The range is for her Silken Thread, so the range on that's going to be, for what I have, is 108 meters, which is far, to say the least. Maximum health is affected by ability strength. Your extra damage is also affected by ability strength. Your wall latch extra damage, again, affected by ability strength. Your explosion damage, that's going to be whenever they explode, that's how much damage they are going to do, and your explosion radius is it's affected by ability range. But that is about how far that explosion is going to go. Now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into the build with her that I have. So her fourth ability is pretty simple. You activate it, you want to throw her spiral legs. Now, with this ability active, you cannot use your melee weapon. Your melee now becomes your first ability, so keep that in mind. Not that big of a deal. You can still use certain melee passive abilities, like on Incarna Weapon. We'll go over that here in a second. But while you have her 4 active, if you dodge, you will activate her Silken Thread, like you can see here, and just go back and forth. You can attach to ceilings, you can attach to walls, but again, every time you attach to a wall or a ceiling, anything other than the floor, you will be refreshing that 8-second buff. And you will be, but you can stay invisible 99% of a mission if you really wanted to. It's not that difficult. And yeah, the enemies do, like I said, if they die, they get a little bit of explosion, which you can actually get really good symmetry with the Kuba Sublac. As you see, I currently have that equipped. So, but first things first, we're going to go ahead and go over the build that I have on. So, for the build, we do have Summoner's Wrath because her Scuttlers do count as summons and companions. So, Summoner's Wrath, any mods that affect summons or companions, even arcanes as well, you can run those as well. So, like I said, some of this stuff is affected by ability range, that's why I did throw in a little bit of range. I don't need like too much. You don't necessarily need this here. But for me, I wanted to have a little bit more ability range, especially on my Web's Embrace. So I went with a little bit of stretch to add a little bit of ability range. Then we have Transient Fortitude to increase our ability strength a little bit more. Archon Continuity, because all of our abilities deal toxic damage, which this now makes them deal corrosive as well. So we're doubling up on that corrosive stripping armor. Now, the reason I have adaptation here is, yes, we are immune to status effects, but we still take normal damage. But this adaptation will help us gain resistance to that damage type, making us a little bit more tanky as well. Do we need it? Not necessarily, but in my opinion, it is really nice to have. I did go for a couple of Umbral mods here, so that way we can get a little bit more boost to our health. Because if you don't have the Umbral mods, you can go for like Vitality and just Base Intensify or one of the other Intensify mods. But with the Umbral mods, if you have it set, they do boost each other. So I do get a little bit more health by running the Umbral mods. So that's why I did go with that, as well as getting a little bit extra strength. Equilibrium, just for energy economy. Yes, I do spawn. You do spawn health orbs and energy orbs, as you see there. I'm spawning a crap ton of health orbs, but not as much when it comes to the energy orbs. So I run equilibrium to kind of keep my energy econ up, as well as constantly heal myself if I have a bunch of energy orbs on the ground and I need help for some reason. Prime Flow, just so we could have a little bit more energy. Now when it comes to the arcanes, so for me, I went with Arcane Bellicose and Volt Augmented. The reason for that is because with Arcane Bellicose, with max, goes up to 72% ability strength. And with that, without being in my 4, my current buff is 37%. But as soon as I activate my 4, I get enough health to get Arcane Bellicose to max. So I now have an additional 72% ability strength. Now with that, this is when I went with Molt Augmented. It's because when Molt Augmented is max and you have killed 250 enemies, it gives you 60% additional ability strength. So once I have killed those additional 250 enemies, I now have 72% from Arcane Bellicose and 60% from Molt Augmented. Now with her passive, with you being able to constantly be invisible 90% of the mission, you could get away with running Arcane Crepuscular and gain additional ability strength and final crit damage. But with that, it's more of, if you, in my opinion, it's more of if you're running like a gun only build, you're just gonna be dishing out a lot of damage with your guns and not really too concerned too much with her abilities. Then yeah, but that 30% ability strength isn't necessarily worth it in my opinion, because I do like to use her abilities a lot. Another thing you could do is Arcane Commissado, because like I said, her companions or her scholars do count as companions and summons, so the attacks you get from them can give you up to 60% additional ability strength on your next ability cast. But the way I like to play, for me personally, I like to use her abilities quite often, dish out a lot of damage, and just throw toxin everywhere. So I wasn't reaping a full benefit from Arcane Commissado. But those are two other options that you could theoretically put on if you wanted to. There are other options, all depending on your playstyle. But those synergize with her really well. Now, when it comes to the Sobek, alright, so with the Sobek, some of you know, some of you might not know this is the Kuva Sobek. Sobek has a specific mod called Acid Shells. Enemies explode on death, dealing 450 corrosive damage, 45% enemy max health in a 15-meter radius, and this is multiplicative based off of all of the other mods. I also have on Primary Blight, which gives me more critical damage as well as more multi-shot. And I do have a Riven on here, which just gives me more Toxin, more multi-shot, a little bit more damage, but I don't necessarily need a Riven on here to make this go super well. But essentially, when enemies die, when you kill an enemy with a Kuva Sobek, they will explode, dealing corrosive damage. Which, at the same time, if you have Oraxia's 4 active, the enemies will explode, dealing toxin damage. Now the range isn't as big as it is; it's about half the size as for the Kuva Sobek. But they still explode and they deal toxin. But with Archon Continuity on, we're also doing even more corrosive damage. So it just synergizes really well, and you can clear entire rooms. You you can kill one enemy and sit there and just watch like 50 of them die. So it is rather good, a little bit overpowered. Now when it comes to melees, like I said, you can't use melee weapons while her 4 is active. So with that, I personally went with the Okina Prime. And the reason why I did that is because one of the things you can get in the evolution set on the 3rd is additional movement speed, which while her 4 is active, you still get that buff from the Incarnate. So I am a little bit faster with her 4 active, even though I don't have the Okina technically. I mean, it is equipped, but I don't have it. I can't use it. I still get that buff, so I can still technically benefit from having the melee equipped. So there are other melees that you can use that'll give you like parkour velocity and stuff like that. Mainly are Incarnate ones, but other than that, if you don't have an Incarnate melee weapon and you have the 4 active, you're not really going to be benefiting from it, from having those different types of passives going on. But with that being said, that is my Oraxia build. The only other thing is the Archon Shard, so I did go with 1 casting speed, and since she just deals a lot of Toxin, I went with 4 Toxin Shards. Now I do need to upgrade this one to a Tile Forge, but Deep Archimedean and Temporal Archimedean aren't being kind to me currently. That's okay. We will upgrade this soon and get that to a Tile Forged, but I'm just going to be dealing a lot more Toxin damage with those on, which is why I went with that. So like I said, I really like to use her abilities, and the build that she is a lot of fun. There's some people that say she just doesn't flow very well, but she does. She does. So what we're going to do right now, that is the end of the showcase for the build. What we're going to do now is we're just going to hop into a little bit of gameplay for you. We're just going to go over here to, not the Cuban Fortress, we're going to go into the Void. We're just going to pop into a survival. Let's see, which one do we want to do? A sabotage now. We're good on sabotages. Capture, exterminate. There we go. So yeah, let's go ahead and do a quick little Sociopath survival. We're just going to be in there for not too long. Just be in there for 5 minutes, and we'll go ahead and bounce out, just so you guys can see a little bit of gameplay, how the build works, how it functions. And the school that I am using on my operator is Zeneric, so
all warriors death.
That is why you're more than welcome to it is Zeneric, so.
Life support has been cut off. They're trying to
I
choke
forgot
you
to
out.
put my companion
Hold
on, but that is a-okay.
I'm
We don't
sending
need the
auxiliary
companion.
life support.
That little nice little symbol going. Let's go ahead and get over into this room here. We like being in the rooms. Archon Shard. Archon Shard's really nice. If you don't need him, you can feed your Hamlet. Yeah, 10 Scotland. In case you didn't know, you can shoot the bombs.
Life support on the way.
In a way, I kind of treat her similarly to how I do my Sarah. I have a very, very similar build on my Sarah. I want to get to a better
life
room.
support capsule to the area. Activating it will buy you more time.
There we go. This room is a good one. We'll chill out here for a little bit. toxin everywhere. It just goes. It can just spread and spread and spread. It can get redonkulous. I've cleared entire rooms with it before. It's crazy. Whenever it goes a little bit hard. We did overspawn the scuttlers there. We have 11 currently. Like I said, that comes into play is with the killing them instantly. You have to be able to kill the enemies instantly. If you can't do that, then it's not gonna work.
Delivered another life support capsule.
Got 11 again. It's just going over here. I heard it. I put my ear and it just kept going. It just spreads toxin and corrosive like it's freaking nobody's business. And you compare this with companions that have grouping abilities to make it a little bit better. Like the Nautilus. The Nautilus is a good companion to Nautilus. I did forget to put it back on. That's okay. I usually do have Nautilus on. I don't necessarily need it. It would make it a little bit more interesting. Yeah, it's still going. Like I said, it's having this combination. It's nuts. It's a lot of fun. We are at 250, so the cool thing is since we have 60% more, or yeah, 60% more ability strength, we come over here and activate our clams. We now have 6,000 HP because we had more ability strength. And Farman is here. Let's deal with this gang. We don't want to have an accidental repeat of what happened last time. Got nullified and died.
Our operative is making progress. This will help our cause.
Let's go ahead and get on out of here.
When you need it, extraction is ready.
Yeah, that is Oraxia. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the showcase. Definitely let me know what you think of the build down in the comments. And hope y'all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.